Hello and welcome to Baldur's Gate 3 Patch Notes number 4. In this video, we will cover flow and script updates to Act 1. Made small behavior improvements to the Gith children shoving round the chest with their mage hands. The Gith Yankee in the Kutchelek dormitories will do more interesting things now. Lae'zel will more consistently join the dialogue about the Zaithusk. Fixed not being able to ask more about your stolen belongings. Gex now puts his weapon away before drinking. Safety first. Karlach will now talk about her infernal engine during her recruitment dialogue if the paladins of Tor were already killed. Auntie Ethel will now leave the Emerald Grove if you fail to pickpocket her while she's having a conversation. Fixed melee recognizing characters who were disguised when they first spoke to him. Sovereign Blood will no longer activate his frenzied spores if you agreed to help him against Sovereign Spore. He'll now only do this if you refuse him and he attacks. Arca will now attack you if you loot Cannon's body. While she's weeping right in front of him and mourning, you monsters. Fixed the visual transformation of the swamp not sticking around in gameplay. The thieflings outside the hideout in the Emerald Grove will still talk to you after Maul threatens you with her countdown. Fixed Duggar players not being able to offer to help get Cole in hunting down the runaway slave. Fixed Philomene not turning hostile or blowing up a runner powder barrel if you choose to attack her via dialogue. Changed the way Bernard in the Arcane Tower gives you a reward. Instead of him walking to a table and placing a ring on it, you now get a standard quest reward window with a ring. The sleeping goblins and bugbears in the goblin camp will no longer attack you immediately if you attack a wall that leads to the temple. Their dialogues will trigger instead. If combat starts against the paladins of Tur, Anders won't give you a cheery greeting while trying to kill you. Killing Auntie Ethel in her tea house will no longer block her quest. Fixed the secret lever to get into the Underdark not glowing when discovered. Lae'zel's correct recruitment dialogue will now trigger when she appears at the encounter with Voss near the mountain pass. If she wasn't recruited yet and was knocked out before then. The encounter in front of the Emerald Grove will not occur anymore if you've already entered the forest or the sunlit wetlands. The Goblin Chieftain of the raid on the Emerald Grove will now properly speak his combat lines during combat. Fixed the gent in the back of the hideout being hostile even if you tell them the password. The ceremonial mace is no longer inaccessible if the kobold carrying it is knocked out and you take a long rest. Fixed a dialogue Bellon in the Underdark not triggering if he saw you picking up noble stock. You will no longer hear what sounds like a crying baby coming from the old library in Rosimon Monastery if the Gremishkas are already dead. Fixed a bug that would cause Gustal Stornigus to not notice that the Zaithusk exploded behind her when freed by someone or something that can't speak. Barkus should now be in front of the windmill instead of behind it. Fixed dialogue skill checks being ruled against Lae'zel instead of the tieflings in Lae'zel's recruitment dialogue in Act 1. Savage Kethk will now treat you like a Gith if you're disguised as one. Fixed the modifier tooltips not appearing correctly when trying to convince Karlach to consume tadpoles. Maul can now be given the Emerald Grove's Idol of Sylvanus, properly after the Goblin leadership is defeated or the Raiders of the Grove are defeated. The journal will update accordingly. The Dark Urge should now be able to blame Asterion for the murder in the Act I camp. Fixed an issue that would cause a Vlokith dialogue to never start. If you're knocked out when you finish the fight with Inquisitor Wuggs. If a player resurrects Connor with the wand while talking to Mirina, he should no longer be hostile after being told to leave. If either Will or Karlach is staying at camp, and the other is controlled by a user other than the primary user, their confrontation will still proceed as normal. Fixed Zevla sometimes asking for your name twice. The tieflings that have caught Lae'zel in Act 1 will now become immediately hostile instead of starting their dialogue. If you attack them with melee or if your summon attacks them, Fixed, you showing off your brand of the Absolute in the Ebon Lake Grotto even if you weren't branded. If you decapitate Karluk before having spoken to her and then resurrect her, she'll no longer spend the rest of the game headless. Persuading Fezzik and the gang to flee from the windmill area now grants XP. Gale will no longer repeat his spell-teaching scene after the celebration at camp. Nor will he reiterate that you should go and enjoy yourself at the party even after it's over. Sazza shouldn't suddenly die anymore after all the goblin leaders are dead. Fixed, Sazza not joining combat against you at the goblin camp if the alarm was sounded. The guards in the Emerald Grove will no longer care about you trespassing the tiefling children's hideout if the goblin raid is underway. Mercon is no less of a silly billy about how he uses disengage around the harpies while fleeing. Droraxlin and Priestess Scott will no longer stick around for another fight if you knock them out and then leave. That is all for now. Thank you for listening. Please remember to update your mods, treat yourself to something nice, and have a wonderful day. If this was helpful, please give thought to share, like, and comment below.